Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very windy welcome to Fretworks. This week, why I never play acoustic guitar, the one thing I would change about my guitar journey to date, and my most embarrassing moment on stage. Let's dive right in. In case you hadn't guessed, I'm not at home at the moment. I'm actually on holiday. This is what holiday in the UK looks like in April. It's beautiful. Typically it is beautiful. I'm in West Wales. I'm doing very much a disservice here. The weather is not doing any favours whatsoever, but a little bit hamstrung being on holiday as to what I could do for Friday Fretworks. So I thought I would open the floor to some questions. I've been inundated with them generally, I guess, on social media over the past couple of weeks and months. Trying to collate all of those into one place over the past couple of days. Picked a couple of the kind of more frequent ones, the best ones. So I'm going to try and answer those this week. But anyway, I'm going to get back in the car. This is absolutely horrendous. So, first question, advice for the hobby guitarist. What mentality do you have around guitar playing and making music? What separates those from making a great product and gets out versus those who were ever stuck in their bedroom, not finishing songs? Honestly, it's determination, I guess, is what it comes down to. I've always been very driven, I've always been very determined, very single-minded in regard to what I wanted to do. Pretty much from the age of about 14, 15 onwards, I guess, when I first started to realise there was a kind of level of natural aptitude for the guitar. It never came easy, but likewise it wasn't something that I particularly had to work overly hard at, like skateboarding or like football or any of the kind of the other things that I loved, which I wasn't particularly naturally gifted in. And I guess from the age which I turned pro, which was 18, 19, pro being, I guess the definition being that you derive all of your money or the bulk of your money from doing that thing. It's all I've ever wanted to do, and it's all I've ever known that I was going to do. Inevitably, when you do turn professional and there's suddenly an added pressure associated with that to put food on the table or turn it into a kind of a viable wage, it does knock your love of it or just changes your relationship with it fundamentally, I guess. As much as my relationship has kind of changed with playing guitar from that point onwards when I turned professional, it's always been one of enjoyment and one of loving it, which I guess that has to be the underlying reason why you do it at the end of the day. You know, it's a kind of profession of which the streams of income are constantly dwindling. All of the ways in which, you know, you would have made money as a musician in years gone by are becoming fewer and fewer. So you have to love it at the end of the day. But I guess to answer the question, ultimately, it has to be determination. You have to have a single-mindedness that this is what you're going to do with your life. So we're back on the move. It stopped raining, but it's about gale force 10 now, so apologies if it's slightly noisy on camera. We're in beautiful St David's, the UK's smallest city, I do believe, at least by population. It's a beautiful little place, probably not best represented by the lovely weather we're having today. But the next question is, what would I change about my guitar journey? Honestly, nothing, I don't think. I've had a pretty good run of it, you know, given the inevitable pitfalls and dangers of being in this industry. It's all been relatively smooth sailing, but in hindsight, if I was to change anything, it would probably be to learn piano first. If ever I have any kind of musical questions, I invariably go to Greg, keys player in Cardinal Black, and pick his brains on it. So I wish I had that kind of theoretical grounding. I think that would probably give me a better appreciation ultimately of music and of guitar. So as much as I'm not trying to push him in the direction of anything in particular, my little boy now, 3 years old, is starting to show a little bit of an interest in music, so kind of gently prodding him in the direction of the piano as opposed to guitar first, because I do think it probably would have given me a better kind of starting point at the very least. So yeah, learn piano. So back on the move now in this beautifully acoustically treated, don't know whether you can hear that on camera, what appears to be a bus stop, although I don't think it's a bus stop because we're on the coast. We're actually in St. Justinian's. Show you. Famed for its lifeboat station. 2 lifeboat stations actually. We've got the old one over there as well. I'm going to take refuge back in my little cubby hole. So apologies for the echoes, but the next question was, you don't see acoustic guitars featured on the channel very much. Is this because you don't play them, or they don't make very good content? Bit of both. I don't think people really kind of associated me with being the acoustic guitar guy, if I'm honest, but secondly, I've long had a suspicion, but had it confirmed for me recently, that I am in actual fact a bloody awful acoustic guitar player. We were putting down some acoustic guitars on the record, and Cyril, our producer and engineer, with all of the patience of a saint, was watching me through the control room, looking through the live room with increasing mounting frustration, is probably the only way of putting it, which all culminated with me saying, tell you what, do you want to do it? And I'm very glad he did, because he's an infinitely better acoustic guitar player than I am. It's just a different discipline. It's just a rhythmic discipline and kind of immovability, if that's a word, that you kind of need with your right hand, especially when you're putting down very specific parts that, with an acoustic guitar within the context of a full band, almost become percussion, I guess, to a degree. It's the kind of the rhythmic element of it more than it is the actual kind of timbre or sound of the instrument, and turns out I'm not very good at that. So yeah, infinitely more respect for anyone who actually is a good acoustic guitar player, because it turns out I'm not.
Tell me how it feels, baby, darling. Tell me how I'm supposed to know, no. Tell me how it feels, baby, oh, because I don't know, yeah.
On the road again, you're getting a bit of a whistle-stop tour here of West Wales, whether you want to or not. In beautiful Aberystwyth this time, which if you are likely to know it for anything, if you're not native to this neck of the woods anyway, it's going to be for the Red Bull kind of extreme cliff diving that they do into the Blue Lagoon. Better them than me. Next question, what's been your most embarrassing moment on stage? Now, in much the same way that all of my best moments on stage never seem to make it to social media, all of my worst ones, of course, do. With the exception of probably the worst one that springs to mind, which was me falling over on stage in, I think, Nuneaton at Queen's Hall back in about 2014, maybe, an eternity ago now. I don't think anyone filmed it, because I don't think anyone was at the gig, in all honesty. And it was one of those horrible falls where it didn't hurt, thankfully, but it was just, I went down in stages. I went down like a kind of felled tree that knew it was falling but could do absolutely nothing about it. And I joke, there were a few people at the show, none of which had any interest in filming what we were doing prior to me falling down. And then as soon as I went down, out came the camera phones, and they were camera phones back then as well. So that's the first one that springs to mind. In regard to kind of musical mishaps, the Tell Me How It Feels solo, I think in Manchester, on tour with Miles Kennedy. Again, it was one of the kind of first shows that we'd ever done, really, probably, I don't know, 5th or 6th gig under our belt by this point. And again, it's one of the few moments of actually people filming it and at least uploading it to social media or YouTube from that tour. Of course, was the worst one. I don't know what went wrong. I just got lost, or just cocked it up, I think, in general. It was just a particularly haphazard attempt at it that sounds a little bit like this. And then lastly, much more recently actually, in August of last year at Chepstow Castle, it's a good lesson actually in making sure that your instrument is maintained, or is at least in working condition prior to a show. We'd flown in from Athens actually the day before, so it'd been a bit of a mad dash couple of days, and I guess my Revstar had probably taken a bang in transit, which unbeknownst to me had dislodged the nut, which then meant that when I went to bend a particularly big note in a solo and Tied Up in Blue, it basically knocked it, I don't know, about half a semitone out of tune, uniformly, crucially, so at least every string was about as out of tune as the next one. But It was a particularly odd moment, and again, thankfully, it's on social media. Of course, it's on social media. So I'll play that next little clip now. But suffice to say, it's not a show that's going to live long in the memory for many reasons. We're on the move again, this time in Porthgain. Always kind of reminds me of, I don't know, if Lord of the Rings built a kind of little fishing village. It's an amazing place. Probably the most frequent question across all platforms. Signature Chris Buck Revstar. Isn't it about time? Couldn't possibly comment. Next question, which I can comment, is how do you record guitars for the album? Do you use more than one guitar? And do you record guitars wet? Or kind of use delays and reverbs in the box? Bit of a different approach, I guess, for different things. For Fretworks, it's literally a DI into Helix or into guitar rig, so everything is in the box in that respect. For the album, I guess part of the beauty of using the incredible studio that we used, Powerplay in Zurich, was that such an incredible array of vintage and cool gear that it would have been a kind of cardinal sin, really, not to record wet and just to not print every sound that you wanted on it at the time of recording. So all of the delays, kind of memory men, plural, kind of crazy stuff, reverbs from 63 Vibe reverbs or, kind of old spring reverb tanks. It's been a fascinating array of stuff, So it was a little bit of a different approach for me, I guess, in that sense, in that ordinarily I tend to kind of, leave that to whoever is mixing it. But of course the risk with that then is that, whether they are going to use an effect that you're happy with. So it's been cool, it's been enjoyable to do it like this and know that whatever is going to go to being mixed is the sound that you want. In regard to using different guitars, yes, obviously did the video a fortnight ago talking about the Les Paul Junior that I've leaned on quite heavily, but it's been my Revstar, it's been my Panucci Gold Top, it's been a Strat or two in there, it's been innumerable Les Pauls, a Silvertone, Jupiter I think maybe got used on a track. So it's been a fascinating array of guitars. So it's been a thoroughly enjoyable album process. Next question. Tell us about the Thorpy pedal, the world's worst kept secret. I can't say a great deal. Lee Anderton kind of leaked it, for want of a better phrase, on Anderton's YouTube or his kind of Facebook and social media stuff the other day. Take solace in the fact that even if I can't say a great deal about it yet, the fact that I was at Anderton's shooting a video about it probably means you won't have to wait much longer. Needless to say, it's a pedal. That's about all I can say about it. You won't have to wait too long. Next question. What do you and Adam's Joy, by extension, think of digital modelers? Would you ever see yourself using one live? This was a pretty common question in one guise or another. Obviously, I've done innumerable clinic tours and stuff with the Helix. I have used the Helix and a power cab live. I've made no bones about that if I do use the Helix live, I kind of want to use it with a power cab. The flexibility or the kind of versatility of the Helix or digital modelers in general, I guess, is unparalleled. And I still think we're in a little bit of a kind of bizarre paradox, really. Given the power of digital and given everything that it can do, we're kind of still using it to replicate what is, for the most part, old, antiquated technology. There's a little bit of a paradox there going on for me, which we may transcend at one point or another. But as I said, in a live context, I kind of need to use it with a power cab, at which point you're essentially just missing a head, maybe, because you've got a fairly decent sized kind of floorboard or pedal board, you've got a fairly decent sized power cab or kind of, speaker cabinet on stage. All you're missing then is a head, at which point do you just get the head or just get a combo and use that. Recording for Fretworks and all that kind of stuff, I use digital stuff all the time. I'm really not averse to it. I enjoy it. As I said, I enjoy its flexibility and its versatility and the sound you can get out of it. In a live context or for quote unquote kind of proper recording, I can't say I'd ever want to lean on it too heavily, just because it's too much fun turning up an old valve amp and waiting for it to inevitably explode. So, cheers. Sat on the soup now for a pint, a Doom bar, and crucially, a slice of Barra as well, which is kind of traditional Welsh cake. I think it literally translates to speckled bread. It's kind of like a dried, fruity, spicy bread. It's very nice if you ever get a chance to try it. Next question is, when does the US tour land? And he playing in the Northeast. It'd be a little bit unfair to call it a tour. We're doing 3 shows. We're playing in Omaha. We're playing with Fire Festival on the 13th of July. We're doing the Basement East in Nashville. After that was upgraded from the basement. After that sold out in a few hours. The Basement East on July 15th. And then July 18th, we're playing at the Troubadour in LA. Which is very much a bucket list show for me, being a massive Guns N' Roses fan. I'm very excited for all of them, but particularly the Troubadour show, if I'm honest. As I said, it'd be a little bit unfair to call it a tour. It's 3 shows. I'll do a video about the upcoming US dates and kind of the behind the scenes stuff, I guess, which people typically don't see in regard to getting a kind of run of dates like that off the ground. It's been monumental, is probably the only word I can think of. It's been a huge effort by every party involved. So there'll be a video upcoming on that soon, but unfortunately no Northeast this time. We would love to come back, and we will come back. This is kind of breaking new ground, new territory for us, and very much kind of sowing the seeds of stuff which will undoubtedly happen in the future. So definitely not this time, but definitely in the future. So home now, or at least back at the holiday cottage anyway. And the next question is do you fix or repair your own guitars? No, is the short answer. In much the same way as the question earlier about acoustic guitar playing, if there is a single most valuable life lesson I've learned to date, it's that if you're not very good at something, find someone who is good at that thing and let them do it. It'll pay dividends in the long run. I'm fairly heavy-handed when I play, to be honest, so if there is a weak point in a guitar, I will find it, and I'm sure my wife would attest to as much, that I'm really not a practical man. I tend to make things better before I make them worse if I try and repair anything. So when it comes to guitars, it is the tools of my trade, it's my profession. Kind of have to just entrust it to people who know what they're doing. That man generally being Hugh Price. Of course, undertook all the restoration work on my 62 Strat. So, as I said, just making sure that my instruments are in tip-top condition, or at least workable condition, is fairly important. So in that respect, definitely trust someone who knows what they're doing. So, new day, same clothes, near enough, nothing new there. And an infinitely nicer day as well. A little bit further up the coast in Cardigan Bay today at Poppet Sands. It's a gorgeous day. A little bit more representative of the West Wales that I know and love, I think. So I'm glad you got to see it at its kind of best, at least. The last question of the video was actually the first I received on social media when I put it out that I was looking for questions, and that was someone very sweetly checking in on my mental health and asking if I was in a good place. It's not something that we tend to talk about, we being blokes, I guess, as a whole. And it's definitely not something I particularly talk about. The rest of the band will rib me for that, for kind of keeping things bottled up, which I guess is just my way. I think I'm in a good place to try and answer the question. It's been a hard year, if I'm honest. Obviously losing my old man and the process of going through that, and him being ill and him being so young as well. I was incredibly fortunate to have a very good relationship with him, and that was something which I guess inevitably I took for granted in my younger years, but I think more recently in the last couple of years I really got to know him as a bloke as well, and not just as my father, So I'm very incredibly grateful for that. And I guess retrospectively it probably only made losing him that much harder, but very fortunate to have enjoyed such a good relationship with him, and inevitably the process of dealing with that and grief, and kind of delayed grief, I think, when someone is ill like that and you go through that, you just go into, I guess, survival mode to a degree, and just kind of move from one thing to the next to make sure everything's still working and everything's still going and functioning, but so it's probably a little bit to unpack and deal with there in time, but I guess it's probably something that you can never quite deal with, I guess. I'm kind of finding this out as I go, but it's probably something which I'll never fully process or kind of get to grips with or understand. But apart from that, a little bit heavy for a second, I think I'm in a good place, and thank you very much for asking. Literally, as I said, I'm in a very good place. It's really is kind of refreshing, even if holidays do still involve a fair amount of work, whether that is for the Fretworks or whether it's stuff with the band, whatever. We're just finalising a live album, we're finalising the second album, all of the artwork, all of the mixes, that kind of go along with that, all of the associated work on the admin side of things, which people don't necessarily see with the band, but it's the kind of the daily bread and butter. There's a lot on my plate, but it's enjoyable. It's not really work when it's something that you truly kind of love, so I'm very fortunate. But anyway, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much for watching this slightly ad hoc episode of Friday Fretworks. I'll see you next week from probably an infinitely less pretty location, but as ever, sit down out of the wind again. As ever, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I shall see you next week. Take care, guys.